Alright, so I'm going to discuss my planted 55-gallon African cichlid tank. I have a variety of cichlids. I mix different lake regions. I find that it doesn't matter. This is my biggest one. He is a Texas cichlid. I got him at about an inch. I have various peacocks. An OB cichlid. It's a rock cichlid. And they do very well. And this is Pink Chocolate, who my daughter named. Everything in the tank except for that piece right there is natural, the rocks and the plants. It's tough to keep a planted tank with cichlids because they do a lot of digging. So I find anchoring the plants to rocks, tying them around with twine, keeps them from digging up, or else every time I turn around they're dug up. So we have some Java fern, we have Anubias, some Valspar, that little one there, Petite Anubias, which came already on the driftwood, and some tall hairgrass. The substrate is a Carib Sea Eco-Complete planted substrate. It's made for plants. It's got minerals in it, essential minerals that are great for the plants, and I've gotten some new plant growth already. You can see the new plant growth on there. There's a new leaf that formed there that got a bite taken out of them. And the Petite has some new growth going on there. I also use liquid CO2 from API. You put that in every day instead of going the expensive route of actual CO2. And I used the Flourish planted tabs placed down in a substrate near each one of the plants. And these plants have been doing really well. This is a great substrate. I used to have the crushed coral, the white crushed coral, which I don't think they would grow as well because this substrate has lots of minerals that are releasing into the plant roots. The tall hairgrass is probably the hardest one for them to dig up to get their mouth on. I'm going to add more of those to the background. And the water parameters, most people keep their cichlid parameters at about an 8.2, which is their natural pH. But your local pet stores are not going to be keeping each individual tank at a different pH. If they got 30 different tanks, freshwater fish, their system is one system for their whole freshwater system. Next time you get a fish, test their water. Most of these cichlids, they're bred at about a neutral, and you can keep them like that. You don't have to raise the pH, even though that's their natural habitat, because they're not even used to that. If the pet store had to keep their parameters different on each one of their tanks, that would be a ton of work, and more power to them if they do it, but I don't see that. Test the water the next time you buy a fish to see what they keep their pH at. And most plants do better at about a neutral pH. Unless you're getting special plants that are used to a higher pH, they would have to be like a natural African plant that grows in their lakes, and you're not going to find that. So I have my pH slightly higher than 7. I'm raising it very slowly to about 7.5. After I had all my fish in, I'm raising it little by little, just to get it a little bit more near the parameters. And I think once I do that, then they'll really start to breed. Keep the water hardness up a little bit, carbonate hardness up a little bit. I add cichlid salts. But you don't have to go to 8.2. My first time using real plants, they didn't do well at the high pH is what I used to keep my cichlid tanks at. If you have a nitrate problem, plants are going to help eat up that nitrate. If you had a lot of algae growth, that's what that algae is eating off of. They're eating that nitrate. I have that temporarily hanging in there until it's time to clean my filter. That is a nitrate remover. The plants will naturally remove the nitrate because I had a problem with that early on, but I have not lost any fish. This is the first time I've tried live plants, and with this new substrate, with the CO2, the tabs, they're doing well. So you can keep a planted tank if you do it carefully. I'd highly recommend this substrate. When I added this substrate, it barely clouded the water. Not like your crushed coral, which would keep that thing white for a week. This was clear within an hour or two. And also, I have a canister filter. Always overfilter your tank. If you have a 55-gallon tank, don't get a filter that says 55. You want to try to circulate that more than an hour. So I have about 100 gallon per hour filter. So this whole water is getting cycled at least 2 times. Don't forget, even if you have a 55-gallon tank with all your rocks and substrate added in there, you don't have 55 gallons. You probably have about 50. So you actually have a little less water than you think. The rule is about 1 inch of fish per gallon. And if you're going to do more than that, you also need a heavier filter. Go big, and you won't have any water problems. I have very clear water, even from the other end. It's fairly clear. I don't have particles floating around. Keep your water flow high. Don't have any dead spots in your tank. The more your water is moving in all the areas, the less that is going to collect in your substrate. You know, when you stick your hand in there and you move around the substrate, stuff comes floating out, clouds your tank. That's because your water's not moving enough everywhere. So always keep your water flowing and try not to have any dead spots in the tank. I use my spray bar up here on the left side. That keeps everything moving, keeps it up in the water column, and it gets sucked out. That also helps keep your water crystal clear. If you don't have your water moving, all that poop and other garbage is going to settle. Every time a fish starts digging, they're going to dig it up and it's going to cloud the water. I've been doing this for about 10 years. The only fish I lose are ones from the pet store that just didn't make it because they were already injured or something. Like pink chocolate here, he came with that injured tail. But I told my daughter she could pick whatever she wanted, and she did this little fish a favor. He's got kind of a dopey looking face, but I think she saved him. I'd like to see some breeding going on here. This blue peacock was the most aggressive. Even more aggressive than on my big Texas cichlid. He did most of the chewing up on my Venusis here, or however you say it. You can see there was a chunk taken out of his tail. And I also had one with a cloudy eye, so I got some fix. Used that for a week. and that helps the fish heal. And I also recommend using that when adding new fish to make sure you don't have any bacteria. Don't use the water from your fish store. Pour it through a net and then add your fish that way. Try to prevent adding anything that the fish may have from the pet store. So that's about it. This is my first time trying plants. I'm just doing very well. I used to just do the classic rocks because that's mostly what cichlids live in, rocky areas. But the plants, they help keep that water even cleaner. They're natural filters. They're natural nitrate removers. And you can see I barely have any algae. I have a little bit growing on that rock right there, and that's about it. This is a fairly new tank. I had all these fish for about a year, but my old tank sprung a leak, so in emergency I grabbed this 55-gallon. And I keep the water at about 78 degrees. And they're doing pretty well. Great hobby, get into it. Start slow when you add your fish. 1 or 2 at a time. Keep an eye on your ammonia levels. Do a lot of water changes. Every week I change about 25% of the water, and that keeps the nitrites down to a manageable level. Again, the plants, they're doing really well, and they're helping keep this water really clean. So thanks for watching. I'm not a professional, but I do know what I'm doing. Have any questions, leave me a comment. This is my first video on YouTube. Good luck.